Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40k Universe. I am your host Gershwan and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about the Eldar as we get into the Exodites. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40k lore every single day. And if you like the content, hit the like button. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Eldar Exodites. The Exodites are members of the Eldari race who predicted the coming of the great enemy, She Who Thirsts, Slaanesh, a whole millennia before the fall of the Eldar. These separatists from the Dark Path began to openly criticize the lax morals of their fellow citizens on their homeworld, warning them against the hedonistic effects of limitless pleasure cults. These early Exodites, who cried for restraint, were often seen as deluded Puritans at best, their calls for action mostly ignored. Noticing their conservative values being brushed off, and the general collapse of Eldar society into heathenistic excess, convinced many of the Exodites that their species was racing towards an inevitable disaster. Fearing the destruction of their empire, some Eldar decided to abandon their homeworlds and colonize new planets so recently formed that they were completely free of the creeping corruption, essentially exiling themselves from the core worlds of their star-spanning empire to newly terraformed colonies called Maiden Worlds. Existing on the edge of their empire, these dissidents came to be known as Exodites, uniquely far-sighted and pragmatic members of their race, and reviled by fellow Eldar as dour fanatics obsessed with misery and self-denial. And some of these labels were actually not far off. In fact, some Exodites were insane, their dire premonitions ceaselessly haunting their dreams, most likely an effect of the psychic ability all Eldar innately possessed. Other Exodites were genuine survivalists who firmly chose exile over degradation and destruction. All of those who sought new life began their exodus in an assortment of various Eldar spacecraft. Many died during the course of their journey. Some reached new worlds only to be slain by marauding orcs or their chosen colony planet's natural predators. But many more persevered and survived, heading into the galactic east as far from the Eldar Empire's core world as they could reach. When the final catalysm of the fall erupted in the 30th millennium, the psychic birth of Slaanesh consumed the Eldar homeworlds, the majority of the exodited colonies were far enough away from the psychic epicenter that they survived. Even after the fall, Exodite homeworlds have not changed a great deal. These Eldar live a more primitive life than that of the craft-world Eldar, and even their corrupted kin, the Drukhari. Exodites learn to cultivate crops and harvest other natural resources. Their societies adapt to a more rigorous and physical culture compared to those of the craft-world, who still make use of the Eldar's advanced technology to maintain a labor-free existence, where the craft-world Eldar cling to the past of their race and preserve all they can of their fallen civilization. The Exodites have turned their backs away from the ancient traditions in favor of simpler, harder ways of life. This has translated in many ways. For example, their psychic defenses are now tougher and more straightforward, but not as subtle, and thus ultimately less effective than those of their craft-world cousins. The psychoplastics, like Wraithbone, that are the cornerstone of Eldar technology, are rare and precious on these remote planets, so the Exodites utilize other substances and rely upon a simpler method of certain tasks, like constant physical labor, that is all but unknown to the Eldar of the craft worlds. Although this lifestyle is in many respects a very primitive one, the Exodites still possess many advanced technologies and remain familiar with the sophisticated materials used on the craft world. Every Exodite homeworld has its own equivalent to the craft-world's infinity circuit, which they refer to as the World Spirit. This World Spirit is a sentient, animalistic entity comprised of pure psychic energy that serves as the spiritual heart of every Exodited world. When an Exodite on one of these worlds dies, his or her soul is immediately drawn to or ritualistically joined with the World Spirit before it can be devoured by She Who Thirsts. Like their craft-world kin, the Exodites also wear spirit stones, and upon their death, a ritual is performed where they are taken beneath the earth into one of their great tribal burrows. There they are laid to rest, their spirit stones broken upon the altar of the World Spirit, so their souls may become a part of this potent psychic collective. These tribal burrows are found all throughout the planet. A complex psychic energy grid extends over the world, stretching between the tribal burrows, stone circles, and standing stones. The warp and real space can interact at these special places, spirits of the dead flowing together as one network of pure psychic energy, a vortex of power where the living can talk to the dead if if they possess the psychic ability to interact with the world spirit. The stone circles and standing stones scattered all across the Exodite worlds are made from psychically interactive crystals. These towering stones are essentially gigantic spirit stones that anchor the world spirit's psychic power into the planet. The link between these stones form a part of the Eldar webway, but the paths from the webway into the different world spirits are well hidden and closely guarded. This enables Eldar to move between craft worlds and Exodited maiden worlds by means of the webway, with interlinking paths over the Exodite worlds themselves. Because Exodite planets are home to their departed spirits and shelter them from the predations of chaos, the Exodites will fight ferociously in protection of their planet. To abandon one of these worlds is akin to abandoning the souls of their ancestors to she who thirsts, for without constant replenishment, the world spirit diminishes slowly and is rendered vulnerable. While individual Exodite societies vary across worlds as well as between them, common to almost all of those known is a social structure based around small, independent tribal communities. The reasons for this is unclear. It is a commonly held belief amongst the scholars of the Imperium of Man that tribalism is the natural state of the Eldar. The life of the Exodites is thought by these scholars to bear the closest resemblance to the elder society of their lost interstellar empire before the fall began. Exodite society is a tribal one, each group owing allegiance to a local ruling tribe, which in turn owes fealty to the planet's king and his royal tribe. Despite the claims of imperial scholars, this social structure more than likely developed out of necessity, as small, scattered communities were the most efficient way to utilize the sparse natural resources of the newly settled maiden worlds. Due to a finite number of resources, there are causes for few territorial disputes. Open wars between tribes are rare, though skirmishes between rival young dragon knights are known to be common. Although not openly warlike, the Exodites are a robust, self-confident people and still possess the legendary pride, some would call it arrogance, of the Eldar race. Hard work must be applied to harvest the resources of an Exodite world. Exodited worlds are savage and untamed. Their meager settlements coexist with wild beasts of all kinds. Settlements are few and far between, scattered and disruptive in the delicate balance of nature. Many are only occupied for few months of the year, because on many worlds the Exodites are nomadic, moving with the seasons and the herds. Exodites time their migration according to when they must collect and plant their crops, remaining only long enough to gather what they previously planted in the spring, and staying until it is time to plant the following year's crop and set off once again. Creatures that inhabit these worlds are numerous and varied. Most of the Exodite worlds are home to large herds of megadons and other gigantic reptilian beasts that the Exodites refer to as dragons. These creatures are not native to most Exodite worlds, but as the early Eldar settlers intentionally spread them throughout all of their worlds, they became quite common. The Exodites follow these herds as they graze, carefully managing them for food, not only partaking of their flesh, but of their blood as drink, skins as clothing and leatherwork, bones and horns, which act in part as substitute for psychoplastic substances such as wraithbone used by the craftworld Eldar. Dragons are diverse and contain different kinds of species, some of which are unique to specific worlds and used in different ways according to their size and nature. The massive herbivores, known as megadons, are slow-witted and easy to manage, although deadly if panicked or mistreated. These creatures provide more of the material resources used by the Exodites. Smaller megadons are used to transport cargo and people across the great plains of their worlds. The larger megadons are capable of carrying massive structures on their back, bearing the most enormous weights without concern. And then there are small carnivorous dragons ridden by the Exodite warriors, as used to herd and control the herbivore megadons. These dragon warriors are so adept as to be practically born into the tall dragon saddle, consummate riders, wielding their long lances with ease. A stab with one of these lances will turn or stop a megadon without causing it any harm, but the same blow would knock the most hardy Eldar to the ground. Dragon warriors are an integral part of Exodite societies. They play an important role as protectors of each community, as well as acting to safeguard their valuable resources from predators and the like. Dragon warriors, or dragon knights as they're sometimes referred to, are not as honorable as they seem. Frequently, they try to steal away a rival's beasts, or may attempt to move their herd over the grazing areas of other tribes. Such matters are seen as part of a Dragon Knight's training, and the dangers of death or serious injury are all an accepted part of the young warrior's life. These raids and occasional deaths do not embitter their tribes to one another, and regardless of how hard fought their battles might be, an Eldar would not despoil or steal the crops of a rival tribe, even as these lie unprotected for months at a time. The Exodite Society is a common destination for Eldar outcasts, since they are notably less hostile to outsiders and those who forsake the Eldar path than their craftworld kin. Often these rogue Eldar seek the patronage of one of the Exodite tribes. In return, they fight alongside the tribe's warriors, and for a while at least, enjoy the freedom of mind, which is often impossible to find in a craft world. To the Exodites, the outcasts are strange romantic figures, masters of hidden lore. They bring skills that the Exodites value highly, and as so, are always welcome into their worlds. And those were 40 facts on the Eldar Exodites. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to share it with your friends. It helps out the channel when you do so, so please share. The Exodites are awesome. It's a shame that GW does not have tactics or does not have stats for them in the actual tabletop game. So if you play 40k and you want to build an Exodite army, you're out of luck because there's no information. At least last time I checked on Battlescribe, there was no rules for the Exodites. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe there's some Forge World models somewhere out there. Comment if you are an Eldar player and you've seen somebody play Exodites. You could play Exodites and just kind of tweak the stats for the regular craft that the Eldar have, but it is kind of a stretch. You really have to talk to your play group and see if that's okay. And it's a shame too, because if you jump on over to the Age of Sigmar line, they have these things, I think they're called like Drake riders or Drake mounts, something like that. They're basically what Exodite Dragon Knights and Dragon Warriors are. It's just an elf on a giant lizard with a lance. And then some people might say, oh, well, lances look kind of funny in 40k, but you can kit bash them real quick, especially when you have the Adeptus Custodes who have those giant spears with the guns on the end. You're going to tell me that's okay, but an elf with a lance that's actually like some type of torpedo would be bad? No, it doesn't. Like it's perfect for it. It's a shame that GW doesn't allow us to have those stats. And actually, looking at the line right now, it seems that the Drake Riders are out of stock. I've seen people take the Drake Riders from the Age of Sigmar line, kit bash them into Rough Riders for an Imperial Guard army. I think GW has to do more of this. There's large communities on Facebook and Instagram that are all about kit bashing different GW products, and not to have Exodites as like a playable army is just, you're missing out on all those people wanting to kit bash, different things. You could even take some of those Triceratop thingies from the Lizardmen in Age of Sigmar and convert them over to like giant megadons for the Exodite worlds. We just need stats for them. The other cool thing about Exodites is that they allow you to play in a fantasy-like setting. A big problem I have right now, I'm building a lot of terrain, but I'm building terrain for D&D. Sometimes, in your case, you might be building terrain for Age of Sigmar, and sometimes it doesn't transfer over to Warhammer 40k just because the fantasy doesn't really blend well with the sci-fi fantasy. You could get away with cathedrals, because cathedrals are just a cathedral, and that's in D&D, that's in Age of Sigmar, that's in 40k, but when you deal with like a cabin, you can't really build a cabin and then try to play it in 40k, because you're going to have a cabin on the tabletop and then a space marine is going to be right next to it, and it's just going to look goofy because you have the superhuman Primaris warrior wearing a jetpack and then you have a wooden cabin. It's kind of goofy. But if you say it's an Exodite world, all of a sudden you can build in, or you can bring in like different structures like Stonehenge and things like that into the setting of Warhammer 40k. I've been binge watching Black Magic Craft. He did a 4-part cabin video, and now I want to build like cabins and structures and stuff. But they're only going to be for Age of Sigmar, for D&D. They're not really going to be for 40k. I have to think outside of the box to actually convert them and make them look nice. But before I ramble anymore, if you guys have any suggestions for other topics of Warhammer 40k, please comment down below. Check out Black Magic Craft. His YouTube channel is pretty awesome. And let him know One Mind Syndicate sent you, I guess. Thanks for everything, guys, and don't forget we have a Patreon. A simple $1 a month helps us create more videos for you guys. If you're already supporting us on Patreon, thank you. Because of you, we can post daily videos. And yeah, I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Oh, I used to put my